Hello everyone, we're on the old Manway going up to Baskins Creek Falls. I didn't really share where the trail starts because it's kind of an off trail. And this first little area is very tricky because you're right next to the mountainside and could slip off in areas. It's getting a little rough in that area. I wanted to hopefully do this before it gets way too overgrown, but even it's getting close now. But in summer it would be twice as bad. That's why I usually don't do this trail in the summers. I usually only do it in the winters or late falls and early spring. I do think this is the latest in spring I've done it. Because I usually do it back when the daffodils are just starting to bloom. Of course, that's way past that time now. But just to show you a little bit of the difference between winter and spring here on this trail. Like I said, I haven't done it really this late in the spring. I don't expect to see anyone until we get to the falls. I don't think too many people go this trail, except for maybe the locals. And even they mainly go at the same times I do. They know how grown up it gets. There are definitely still some tricky spots on the trail. And there are some side trails on this trail too that can lead you astray if you don't know where you're going. It's kind of easy to tell which way to go. You just gotta remember you gotta stay on this side of the big creek. You never cross the big creek down there. Of course, that's the same creek the waterfall's on, Baskins Creek. Of course, it's more visible in the winter. Now we may have to walk in the creek part of it, because I know there was one part of the trail that's getting really washed out. And as you can see, there's probably going to be trees down. This one's definitely new since the last time I came up through here. But we have had storms since the last was here and high winds. Of course, in the winter you can see the creek a lot better. You get better water views. My plan is to do just a very big loop. I'm going to go up through here and then go out the main Baskins Creek Trail and then back down the Cherokee Orchard Road where I parked. Which what I did does involve walking through Gatlinburg, the back part of it anyway. But I didn't do any videos or photos until I started on this trail, or got so far up this trail. I know there's usually flowers through here, so another reason I came up through here. Of course, now being spring and all, we're gonna have to keep a lookout for bears. This is one of their big areas getting down to and from Gatlinburg too. And of course, being grown up like it is, it's gonna be hard to see them now. In the winter, it's all open through here. You can see real good. I actually waited just a little too long to do this because it's already almost more overgrown than I like. Now, of course, it's going to be Spiderweb City back through here. Of course, there's quite a bit of poison oak too, you see here in areas. Poison ivy. But we should see quite a few people on the way out on the touristy part trail to the falls. Like I said, there'll probably be a few at the falls when we get there. As you can see, this area does get rough when it starts getting green. Of course, it can be rough enough when it's not green. You can kind of see why I avoid this trail. Mainly because you do got other trails to the falls. Just makes a good hike because it's usually not too many people on it. Of course, you gotta watch out for snakes too this time of the year. Here's one of the splits I'm talking about. It does look like the trail continues that way. You go across the creek, but you actually go this way. But I did go to an old homestead at one time. It's not really too long of a trail, but it can be a mess to get up and down, especially this time of the year. Of course, the way it's eroding in places, it's a little rough any time of the year. Unfortunately, the trillium's about past their time. But it is a little bit lower elevation here. Of course, most of the flowers we're going to see through here are flowers we've seen already. I just wanted to go somewhere where there wouldn't be too many people, at least the first part of the trail. Yep, this trail does get very thin in places. Of course, it is a little bit easier when everything's not green. Still yellow trillium here and there, but most of it's getting past its time too. We're supposed to start closing the Bullhead Trail next week, Monday through Thursdays. So keep that in mind. Of course, this part's a little bit easier to follow this time of the year, where the rocks are. Here in the winter, I usually just walk up through there. But the trail's a little bit more easier to follow. Through that part. Some sort of insect there. eggs. It's a little rougher through here. That's why I usually went through the rocks, you know, when it's not green. Yep, I'm getting cocooned in spider webs. You can sort of see a rock wall barely through there. Of course, it's very visible in the winter. But I think you can see how hard it is going to be to see a bear through here. If there is one, with everything all dreamed up. And the trail can be a little harder to follow in areas too. And then you get the open spots again. This will definitely be the last time I come this way to the falls this year. Until either late fall or winter. Like I said, it gets even worse than this in the midsummer. Heard a woodpecker here a minute ago. Going a little slow because I'm kind of looking for flowers too, mixed in amongst the poison ivy and stuff and other stuff. I believe these are actually daylilies coming up through here. A whole big bunch of them. They should be blooming in a few weeks. But it'd be extremely hard to get back here to see them by then. You can actually see we're near an old home site. There's a rock pile right there. Which explains why there's daylilies here. because anytime you see like daylilies, daffodils, irises, that's usually a sign of an old home site. That's why they're there. Another good sign is like a big holly bush. Of course, with it being greener, it's going to be harder to show other home sites up through here right now. Even though we will be going right by another one, should be a little easy to point out. Here, that woodpecker again in the background. It's kind of far, so I don't know if the camera's getting it or not. The trail does look a lot different when it's green though, from when it's not green. Hopefully on our way out the main Baskins Creek Trail, and hopefully we might see some azaleas again like we did on the other day on Little Greenbrier Trail. But I don't know if they're still there or not. Of course they can be a little hard to see too because they're usually way off the trail. Everything being greened up, it's going to be hard to see. I think it might be a little easier to go down a little further. That way the trees are not as high to step over. I said there's one portion of the trail up through here I'm going to most likely have to walk through the creek. Kind of hard to tell because it's kind of been smooshed out, but I think it might be a bear track there. It's definitely not human. Like I said, this is one of the main routes for the bears to go down and back up from Gatlinburg, just like Cherokee Orchard Road is. Another main route for them. One good thing though, once I get this part done and get up to the falls, the rest of the trail should be good. Should be clear. I don't remember this tree being down the last time I came up through here. This is not too long of a trail, but when it gets grown up, it does slow you down. Yep, there's a lot of poison ivy through here too. So if you're super allergic to it, I definitely wouldn't even try this right now. If you know where this is at. Another reason I do it in the winter. I just sort of wanted to give a different perspective of this trail. And it's green, but it's not too green yet. Even though I'm almost to the point where it's too green. So I waited almost too long to do it. Yeah, as you know, I've been on far worse trails than this. Sort of wanted to do one of them old horse trails again this year, but it looks like it's not going to be till fall now. I definitely don't want to go that way with it this green. Looks like the falls are going to be flowing pretty good. So it might be a fun crossing there at the falls too. I already know there's a tree down there that's going to make that fun crossing. So I'll probably have the camera put away then to cross it. I know it's going to be tricky to get across with the tree down. Unless they've cleared it, but I highly doubt they've cleared it. Since theoretically it's not blocking the trail. The main trail that is. Locals are the only ones that clear this trail every now and then. Because you know, you've seen some trees that have been cut through here. It's mainly just the locals that had family that lived back in here who come and still visit the home sites and stuff. Clear it. You can't see it now. There's actually an old home site over there across the creek. You can see the rock pile over there for the chimney, but you can kind of see where there would have been a farm over there. It's definitely easier to see when it's not green. I think we should be getting fairly close to the site where I think we're going to have to walk through the creek. Or up the creek, I should say. From here, you can kind of see where there's an old road right through there, going right up through there. But you do get a better perspective if that was a field back in the day where they would have farmed. Maybe in the winter sometime I'll come back in here and I'll cross the creek. or maybe fall before it gets. Yeah, this is the tricky area I was thinking of. You see, I'm literally standing in a hole right now. This was a good trail. Used to be a good trail right through here, but when it rains, when it floods, it washes the trail out. I think I'm just gonna have to walk the creek. Whew. You can kind of see here how it does. It washes the underneath the trail out, and then the trail collapses. I think there's one more area up through here. It's a little rough. Yep, right here. You kind of see how the trail keeps breaking down there. You used to actually go through here. And look how it's coming out from under the ground there. Literally right out from under the trail. Definitely a trail you don't want to do when the water is really high or raining. I'm probably going to change my pants to shorts once I get to the falls. I purposely wore the bottoms of my pants so I could go up through here because I knew it would be fairly overgrown. Okay, here's another home site. You can still barely see the chimney, part of the chimney right there. Of course, it's hard to see this time of the year, but it's the old chimney's right there. It shouldn't be too far from the falls now. We're getting kind of in an area where I saw hog diggings the last time I came up through here though. I'm sure I've probably passed up a few jack-in-the pulpits, but they're hard to see, especially in all this green. As you know, jacks on the pulpits are green, so it can be hard to see them because they blend in fairly good with all the other green around them. But I have seen a few this year and got a few photos of them, so I still like seeing them though. That's a tricky one. Trying to watch my footing because I don't want to step on any flowers. I think it's false solemn in there, what it's called. Areas like this is where I worry about the snakes and stuff. Can't really see the trail too good. And then we're getting the sun starting to shine on parts of the trail too. This is another one of them iffy parts of the trail. It gets washed out during floods. You kind of see how it's getting a little bit washed out there. It's collapsing down. This is really collapsed here. Look at that. Trail's actually up there. Wow. I know it don't look like it, but it's a big climb. At least it's not muddier than it is, but bad enough. But the trail did used to go all the way through there, and now you can see it collapse. Because it used to be just as high as this from the creek. This part of the trail don't look too good either. I see it's hollow underneath, where it's washing out from underneath, and that's what causes it to collapse. There's sort of a perfect example on that you can't really see too good. Big hole in the trail. It's what's under the trail right there. So it's kind of Makes you feel a little iffy, you know, walking on it. Eventually we're going to get a little bit of ways from the creek. The closer we get to the falls. Of course, we won't be too far from the creek, but we won't be right on its edge, I should say. So we won't have to worry about washed out sections. But the strawberry and green does make it a little different hiking up through here rather than when I normally walk up through here. You can definitely tell there was another homestead through here. And literally covered in spider webs. But I knew it would be coming this way. Look at all the false Solomon up through there. Definitely looks a lot different up through here when it's green though, that's for sure. I know that's the way you're all are not used to seeing this, used to seeing it without any of the greenery. That's what the road used to go through there. definitely hard to tell now, but this did used to be a old road up through here many years ago. Of course, that should have been obvious, you know, with the home sites up through here. Even though it's getting in rough shape, I do still think this is kind of my favorite trail to Baskins Creek Falls. Here at another old home site. Like I said, there's definitely quite a bit of poison ivy through here. I know I'm probably going to be itchy later because of it, but I'm not over allergic to it. I know there are some people out there, if they get any bit of it on them, they'll have to go to a doctor. And here's actual the Solomon itself, not the false Solomon. Be hard for my camera to focus on him. It focused for a second. Should be getting fairly close to the falls now, for sure. Won't be able to see them from a distance like we normally do. You can tell that was a man-made rock pile there. Not the first time that we're getting near the falls. It'll probably be we'll hear people. Spiders galore through here. Trying to get them off of me at least and put them back where they were. So they can build their webs back. Sorry, trying to get the spiders off my camera. Put them back where they can build their webs back. There were a lot of spiders in that water crossing. Just the very long-legged top spiders, what they were. Not in this area is where I saw all the hog digging the last time I was up through here. I'm not seeing anything fresh right now. But the waterfall should be right up through there. There might not be too many people up here at the falls. This one doesn't seem as busy as many of the other falls. Of course, people probably don't like that climb down to the falls either on this one, because it can be a little tricky. That's why I'll probably wait to start my second video after I climbed up it. Normally we would be seeing the falls a little bit right up through there, but with it green you can't really see them from a distance now. Still trying to see if there's any jacks through here, but I'm not seeing any. Like I said, they're hard to see with everything green. They blend in like super good, especially when there's this much greenery. Wow. There's like a super bunch of poison up here near the waterfall. One reason I don't go too much off the trail in the summer. I do, but I don't, depending on where I'm at. You can hear the falls. Not hearing anyone yet, but it doesn't mean there's no one there. You can see a little bit of the cliff face where the falls is. Look, the real rough part's basically over for me. Once I get across the creek and up the other side, it should be smooth sailing the rest of the hike. Well, looks like there's no one here so far. Like I said, those trees down are going to make a mess for getting across. That's why I'm not going to video my walk across. I'm going to put the camera up and just concentrate getting across there. See what's doing a mess on this side. I hope you enjoyed this hike up the Baskins Creek Falls using the old Manway. Everyone, thanks for watching and have a great day.